How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the channel. This is Big Daddy Dave, and this is a how to find maximum profit for your animals here on Farming Simulator 25. And we're going to focus here today on horses. Now, let me tell you, this one is difficult. Wow, wow, wow. So, up until this point, I've recorded the pigs, the beef cattle, and the roosters. And each one of them has had very interesting results, and they're relatively straightforward. But what makes this one a little bit more difficult than the rest is, one, this isn't a set and forget animal. You have to go out and ride them. And if you saw my how to care for horses video, you'll see all the various types of inputs and things that you have to do in order to make sure you're getting the maximum amount of revenue from these animals. And it's involved. It's a lot of stuff to do. And if you start getting into 2, 3, 4, 5, 16 horses for your farm, wow, it gets intense. Now, thankfully for this series, I kind of had the idea of just doing it in kind of two separate steps. So before I get into all the various different things that I've found for this specific animal type, I wanted to kind of give a breakdown of what you're going to see here for the tables that I've created. So in the first table that you'll see a description of the month number, month, age, feed, feed diff, value, value diff, total feed needed, total cost of feed, and value minus total costs. Now, what do each one of those columns represent? Month number is just the number at which you start looking into the actual data. So if I go into the game, very first month of August, that's going to be denoted with month number 1. If I'm then 5 months later, it's going to be January, month number 6. Month denotes the actual in-game month that is being represented. Age is the representation of the age for the animal. So when you first get into game and you purchase your animal for the very first time, they're going to be at age 0, always starting. Feed is going to be the total amount of feed that can fit into, so let me back up. Feed will start always with the total amount of feed that will fit into the pen or pasture that is being used in the description. So I specifically chose the largest available barns that were for the given animal at any given description. So for an example, our chicken barn can hold up to 9,000 liters and no more. Feed diff is the difference month to month of how much feed was consumed by the given animal. Value is the actual monetary number displayed for the animal that represents how much they are worth at that given time. Value diff is the difference between the value that they are worth and the initial payment that you gave in order to get that animal. So that payment includes not only the cost of the animal, but the cost of the delivery as well. Total feed is the total amount of feed that they have consumed up until that point in time. So if they are 5 months in, it's going to include the 5th month, the 4th, 3rd, 2nd, 1st months. So it's going to include all of those as an aggregate into that final total. Total food needed is how many purchasables are you going to have to purchase in order to get to the total feed necessary. So in the case of something like roosters, if you're in the 5th month and they have eaten up to 20 liters of food, well, you only need 1 pallet to be able to cover that level of food consumption. So it's going to be represented by the number 1. Total food or total cost of feed is just the value at which you had to purchase said feed. And then value minus total cost is going to be how much is your total value minus the amount of cost it took to get the feed. And that's the kind of representation of the single animal table. And then there's going to be the full pen table. And that full pen table is going to be the same as the original single pen or a single animal table, but it's going to then be multiplied by the maximum amount of animals that can fit in the barn that is being represented in the video. So now that I've kind of laid that all out, I'll go back to the main video so you can see all the various breakdowns. One, focusing on one single animal. So all I had to worry about was riding and feeding and caring for one animal. And then in the second stage, kind of extrapolating that single result out into a multiple pen that will fill up the maximum allotment for horses. In this case, you're allowed 16 horses in a single pen. That is the maximum amount you are allowed. Now, to kind of give some introductory numbers for the kind of single focus for our animals, it costs $800 for you to be able to purchase one animal, and that's having it delivered and the whole 9 yards. So you're not taking into account things like the animal pen, the animal trailer, things like that. You're just taking in the base price of the animal that you're going to have to pay out right up front. It's $800. Now, one thing I will say is that this is looking at what it will cost you if you put in the maximum inputs for your animal. And what it's going to basically show is at the end of this, what are the maximum inputs, or the minimum value that you can get out of these animals with putting in the maximum inputs. And the only way you're going to be able to go from here is up. So there's not going to be a kind of floor that falls out underneath you. You're going to be able to go up from here if you are able to source some of the materials, like the hay, like the oats, like the beet, or not beet, the root crops, things like that. You'll be able to actually make this a much bigger profit margin than if you were to kind of go around and just use this as your kind of metrics and your bare bones basic kind of entry-level thing. So, like I said, if you haven't yet, go ahead and check out the How to Care for Horses, because that'll give you all the things to get your horse up to 100% and be able to get the maximum profit out of that individual animal. So what I want to focus on is the single horse first. So starting out at age 0, after you buy them for $800, they are then worth a value of $120. So you're already, right off the bat, a negative $680 to that single animal, to that one horse. And it only goes up from there, but not by much. And again, you're having to ride them, you're having to feed them, the whole 9 yards. Just like you would with every other animal and feeding them, this is the only one where you have to actually proactively do stuff with. Now, after the first month, that differential, that value goes up from $120 to $364. Now that gives you a value difference of your initial investment of $436. Now, in that 1 month, that horse has eaten 59 liters of food. 59 liters. That's it. So really, they're not eating much right now. But after several months, actually almost 2 years, it gets up there. It gets up to 400 liters at the 20-month mark. So once the animal is 20 months of age, they will start eating 400 liters per month. It is a ridiculous amount of feed that they will eat month to month to month. So when you extrapolate that out across 16 animals when the pen is full, I mean, that's quite a bit of food that they're going to be taking in at that point. Now, up into that 20-month mark, they've actually taken in a grand total of 4,821 liters. Now, the pen will hold, and this is the biggest pen for the game. There are different ones, but the biggest one will hold 20,000 liters. So after 20 months, so you're not even 2 years in, and you're not even up to your maximum value for your horse as of that point, they're already eaten approximately 1/4 of all the food. You're really close to 1/4 of the food being eaten at that point in order to get to that point in time. Now, at that point in time, also at the 20-month mark, they're worth $2,155. So you're creeping ever and ever closer, but you're still at a point where you are, still having room to grow at that point. But one thing that is kind of being taken into account is the food that is getting put in. So you have to buy, or you don't have to buy, you can source these, but for the purposes of this, I purchased the oats, I purchased the bales of hay. The only thing I wasn't able to purchase because it's not available for purchase as base game are the root crops. And you can see here on this screen here, you can see base food, which is going to be your oats and sorghum, your hay, which is just hay, and then your root crops are going to be things like parsnips, potatoes, carrots, things like that. Those are going to be the things that kind of get thrown into those categories. Now, you can't source or you can't buy the root crops. You have to actually source them yourself. So that's why I ended up doing in the background to get up to that magic 100% for their feed. Now, because you have to purchase all those individual components, the specifically the bale of hay and the oats, that's a value of $2,946 per 9,000 liters of food. So you get 1,000 liters for the oats and 8,000 liters for the bale of hay. So that's kind of how I calculated all these things out to be able to kind of figure out how much feed are going to be needed for that individual horse at that specific point in time, the whole 9 yards. It's just one of those, like, it's not going to be where you're going to have to buy an extra bale of hay every single time your horse needs it, kind of thing. You're only going to have to fill up that portion of feed every single or whenever the animal needs it. So like I said, these are all kind of the maximum expected values to show what the minimum level of profit can be, and then it can only go up from there. So when do you start actually breaking even when you buy your products for your single animal? Again, taking out the fact of the root crops, just the hay and the oats, you do not actually turn a profit until the animal turns 27 months. 27 months. At that point, they're worth $3,050. And you have basically put in enough of an investment at that point to be able to come out of the red on that single animal, and now you're ahead of the game by $104. $104, that's it. I mean, it takes a long time to get into it, but here's the downside. To get to your maximum profit level for that one animal, you have to get rid of them by the age of 30 months. Now, why is that? At that point, they have consumed 8,821 liters. Now, again, this is going to be a little funky because you might have to buy more oats in order to kind of pad out the base food level. So you won't necessarily have that 9,000 total liters. Again, this is all kind of, rough math and all that kind of stuff. But you should, at that point, have roughly $487 in profit at the age of 30 months. But then at the 31-month mark, you then get up to 9,221 liters consumed at that point, which means you have to go through another purchasing cycle, and you're going to spend another $2,946 for the one bag of oats and one bale of hay. So again, you're now in the black, or you're now in the red again, because you have to make that secondary purchase. Now, all that being said and done, that's kind of what you're looking for. And to get to your maximum profit for your animal, not the maximum profit, but the maximum payout for your horse, the maximum payout is $5,000, and that happens at age 36 months. So once you get to the 36-month mark, you're sitting there and putting so much money into buying the feed and buying the hay and all that stuff that it's not really worth it at that point. You getting up to the maximum value isn't going to be the maximum amount if you're buying everything. And now if you're sourcing it, then horses are worth it, because at that point you're able to get your oats off the field for a significantly reduced price. You're getting your hay off of your field for a significantly reduced price. You're not spending that really high value right off the bat, and you're only putting in what is necessary to get that animal to the next month and the next month and the next month. Now, let's change our focus and look at if you were to slam the pen full of all the same aged animals right off the bat. So 16 horses is the maximum capacity for this particular barn. Again, it's the largest one base game. when do we start seeing a profit? Well, you start seeing a profit at age number 7. 7 months is when you start seeing a profit at that point. The feed that will be consumed at that point is 13,056 liters. You'll need to have 2 full purchasing cycles. So 2 full bales of hay and 2 full pallets of oats in order to be able to have that kind of literage to be met. Again, not going to be exactly what you're looking at there. You might be able to kind of work out the margins and stuff like that. You might only have to buy 3 pallets of oats versus 1 bale of hay, kind of thing. It is one of those you're going to have to kind of play around with it and see what you get, but it should only go up from here. But that profit that you'll make at that point, if you were to sell off all your horses, would be $2,012 based on all these numbers I'm throwing out there. Now, when do you see your maximum profit for your output versus what you have put into your animals? Well, that is going to be at the 22-month mark for $9,016 for all 16 horses. Now, based on my math here, you have put in $29,460 for all the various feed that is needed, because again, at that point, all 16 horses have consumed 89,936 liters of feed. And it's that combination of feed, again, of the oats/sorghum, hay, and their root crops. So that's how much it'll cost to be able to kind of get that literage for the various inputs. And at that point, you'll get a output value of $38,576. That's where you get the $9,000 profit. And unfortunately, from there, it only goes down because you're getting more and more feed at that point kind of being generated. They're eating more, and you're not getting the necessary bump in value to be able to combat the amount of feed that you're having to put in. So again, if you're able to source it, then it works out perfectly, because then you're not having to necessarily worry about the value at which you're spending. You're trimming off the margins of what it is that you're putting into the horses in order to have the maximum level of output. Now, if we go to the 36-month mark where they're the most valuable and we have sourced all of our materials, we sourced the oats/sorghum, we sourced the hay, and we sourced the root crops, what kind of value can we expect to see? Well, we can expect to see a value of $67,200. That's minus the initial investment cost. That's the kind of difference between there. So we get a pretty decent output for our horses if we have an entire pen full. But again, you're going to be spending a ton of time riding each and every one of these animals to get them up to their 100%, and then you've got to brush them to clean them. It's going to take a very, very long time. So what it all boils down to with horses, yes, you get a very healthy profit. You get a very healthy profit of all 16 animals bringing out $67,000 in profit in 3 years' time is not that bad. You figure that is roughly, $22,500 a year. About $22,000 a year. That's not bad. That's not bad at all. But is it going to be worth riding 16 horses every single day? Or in this case, every single month? Is it going to be worth brushing 16 horses after you ride them every single day? That's going to be up to you. That's going to be up to you and how you want to play this game. But in the end, you can make money with horses. Where you're going to make the most money, obviously, with any animal that you purchase is going to be when you supply them yourselves and not purchasing your inputs. But you can still make money. You just need to know when the cutoffs are in order to do it. So I hope this video has helped kind of show where those kind of profit margins are and where you're going to be able to get your maximum output from purchasing your inputs. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please show them by liking, sharing, subscribing, following, commenting, doing all the things the algorithms enjoy you doing that shows you're engaged with this channel, enjoying the content. And that being said, I hope you have a fantastic day. Take care.